Hello and welcome to the news on NTA International. I'm Lami Ali. The sign language interpreter is Taiwo Osama, and here are the headlines. President Tinubu addresses Lucian Joint Parliament sues for enhanced collaboration. Nigerian legislators join counterparts across the globe to commemorate the 2025 International Day of Parliamentarianism. And UN Secretary General urges world leaders to increase pace of development at a time US-led cuts are jeopardizing fight against poverty and climate change. Now we begin from St. Lucia, where President Bola Tinubu granted visa waiver and diplomatic and professional passport holders of OEC and member states to further boost and encourage social, economic and cultural relations and smooth movements of officials in Nigeria. Addressing a joint session of St. Lucia's Parliament, he said Nigeria is ready to extend the services of her Technical Aid Corps Organization of Eastern Caribbean States and provide skilled professionals to support capacity building across all sectors in the region.
Among our peoples, from ordinary to the leadership, I encourage the integration of Nigeria and OEC's cultural awareness of our shared heritage, values, and traditions among future generations.
The president announced the formal establishment of diplomatic relations with St. Lucia.
Commitment to nurturing the seed of friendship and solidarity we have planted here today. We value this relationship and are determined to see it flourish in the spirit of brotherhood, shared history, and vision of greater prosperity for our people. As we chat,
Prime Minister of St. Lucia applauded President Tinubu, saying the two nations have ancestral history.
In the creative industries and foster exchange programs between Nigerian and St. Lucian artists, musicians, and filmmakers. In the area of sports, there are several opportunities for developing exchange programs in cricket and football among lovers of the two sports in our respective countries. I'm certain that Nigeria could be of great benefit in enhancing the skills and technical abilities of our aspiring St. Lucian footballers, and we can do the same for Nigeria in cricket.
Meanwhile, State House correspondent Musbat Unwahab reports on the reactions to the president's address.
Our presidential haste with me here, and first I start with the special advisor to the president on information and strategy, Mr. Bayo Nanuga. Thank you so much. We just listened to Mr. President's address in the joint session of the Parliament here. What have you got from this address or addresses from both sides?
Well, I think the two addresses by our president and the Prime Minister, Mr. Pierre, I think it will open some new relationship between Nigeria and not just St. Lucia, but also the OECS states. For a long time, the continent of Africa literally abandoned the Africans in diaspora, but I think that's changed. With you even now calling the Africans in diaspora the sixth African region. What Nigeria is doing today, what the president has done today, is to further broaden the bonds that bind all of us together, both Africans in diaspora and Africans on the continent. Nigeria being the largest, the most populated African country. I think from what the president said, and from the historical ties we've had before, people-to-people relationship, Lucians playing some important role in our country, I think this will mark a new beginning, something that will resonate in the future.
Again, I have with me the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Foreign Affairs, Ademola Oshode. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. President has expressed this readiness to partner with St. Lucia and Organization of Eastern Caribbean Countries expressing some areas of shared interest that will, and Nigeria is also promising to give some programs forward in the interest of these countries. What do you make of this?
I think it's rather exciting. It shows that the Nigerian President Bola Tinubu, is not just engaged in the big countries, the big strategic countries around the world, the likes of America, China, India, Brazil, but also has focus and attention on the smaller ones, the ones that we will look at and say they don't matter, but they do matter. We have with St. Lucia, we have cultural similarity, we have also historical history with them, historical relationship, and also it's a gateway towards the Caribbean. It's 130 billion economy in the Caribbean. So the relationship with Nigeria and St. Lucia and also the East African Caribbean states is vital. It's vital for our access into the Caribbean regarding our trade, cultural, and even our access, even with the United Nations. Nigeria can ensure that we have partnership and attention from the Caribbean countries.
Thank you, Ms. Bao. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has urged the world to increase the pace of developments at a time U.S.-led cuts are jeopardizing the fight against poverty and climate change. Uche Ugochukwu reports that this is coming as world leaders gather at a UN conference on financing for development in Spain.
Dozens of world leaders and more than 4,000 representatives from businesses, civil society and financial institutions are gathering in Spain for the June 30 to July 3 conference to seek fresh impetus for the crisis-hit aid sector. However, the United States is snubbing the biggest of such talks in a decade, underlining the erosion of international cooperation on combating hunger, disease and climate change. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres told delegates at the opening of the conference that 2/3 of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals set for 2030 were lagging and more than $4 trillion of annual investment would be needed to achieve them. U.S. President Donald Trump's withdrawal of his country's development agency, USAID, is a major example. Meanwhile, Germany, Britain and France are also making cuts while they boost spending in areas such as defense. Report says the cuts to development aid are the largest since 1960. Disruption to global trade from Trump's tariffs and ongoing conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine have dealt further blows to the diplomatic cohesion necessary for concentrating efforts on helping countries escape poverty.
We know that there are resistances. We know that this is essentially a question of power. But I have a clear message to the powerful. It is better for them to lead the reform of the system now than to wait and eventually suffer the resistance later when power relations change.
The European Union provides 42% of the world's development aid. We're proud of this, and our commitment is here to stay. At the same time, it is good that new donors are now stepping up. So why don't we combine forces, set up joint investment programs that play on our respective strengths for maximum impact?
The gathering is expected to adopt a document reaffirming commitments to eliminating poverty and hunger, promoting gender equality, reforming tax systems and international financial institutions. Uche Ugochukwu, NTA News.
Major heat waves across southern Europe have pushed temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius in countries including Italy, Spain and Greece, as local authorities issued fresh warnings against the risk of wildfires. Experts link the rise in frequency and intensity of these heat waves to climate change, warning that such extreme weather events are becoming increasingly common across Europe's southern region. Severe heat was recorded in Italy, Greece, Spain and Portugal before the weekend, with locals and tourists alike taking shelter from the hot conditions. Two-thirds of Portugal were on high alert Sunday for extreme heat and wildfires, with temperatures expected to hit 42 degrees Celsius in Lisbon. A large wildfire broke out south of Athens on Saturday, forcing evacuations and road closures near the ancient temple of Poseidon. Strong winds spread the flames, damaging homes and sending smoke across the sky. Greek authorities deployed 130 firefighters, 12 planes and 12 helicopters to battle the blaze, while police evacuated 40 people, with 5 areas under evacuation orders. Democratic Republic of Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi hails a peace deal with Rwanda aimed at ending decades of violence in the eastern parts of the country. In a televised address marking 65 years of the country's independence, the president said the accord paves the way for a new era of stability, cooperation and prosperity for the nation. Uche Ugochukwu tells us more.
The Democratic Republic of Congo's vast east has been bedeviled by deadly fighting that has ravaged the region for 3 decades.
Il y a quelques jours à Washington,
President Felix Tshisekedi said the peace deal with Rwanda is expected to end decades of violence in the region and pave way for a new era of stability. The conflict intensified early this year when the Rwanda-backed M23 armed group launched a lightning offensive, seizing territory including the 2 key cities of Goma and Bukavu. After several attempts at negotiations failed and with Doha-led mediation between Kinshasa and the M23 ongoing, Congolese and Rwandan foreign ministers signed a peace deal in Washington on Friday. The agreement, described as a significant milestone towards peace by the African Union and the United Nations, follows a string of truces and ceasefires brokered and subsequently broken in recent years. President Tshisekedi said the deal is not just a document, but a promise of peace for the people affected by the conflict in the eastern DRC. Uche Ugochukwu, NTA News.
Canada has scrapped a tax on big U.S. technology firms just hours before it was due to come into force to allow trade talks between the two countries to restart. On Friday, U.S. President Donald Trump called off negotiations over a trade deal, describing the tax as a blatant attack and threatened higher tariffs on imports from Canada. In response, Canada has said it is removing the tax, which should have come into effect on Monday. The digital services tax would have meant U.S. tech giants, including Amazon, Meta, Google, and Apple, facing a 3% charge on Canadian revenue above $20 million. Canada's Finance Minister, Francois-Philippe Champagne, issued a statement saying the tax would be rescinded. Now, the African Union Border Program is emphasizing strengthening socioeconomic growth in border communities to promote regional and continental integration. Calvin Iwunai reports that countries are now expected to use the template, which is the central theme for the 2025 African Border Day celebrations, to advance strategies for effective border management.
2007. The Conference of African Ministers created the African Border Program to assist countries in building the capacity of stakeholders for improved border governance, delineation and demarcation of their borders, and promotion of cross-border cooperation. The African Border Day, celebrated annually, is designed to galvanize awareness on these issues and evaluate national and continental challenges in border management. That is why the National Boundary Commission brought together stakeholders to explore ways to further improve economic conditions in border communities and discuss situations at the nation's international borders.
The National Boundary Commission is committed to transformation and effective border governance through the definition and the implementation of Nigeria's territorial borders.
Some deputy governors, who are chairmen of their state boundary committees and regional committees, made inputs at the event. In Abuja, Kelvin Ebonoye, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International. Time to pause for a break. Do stay. You're welcome back. A delegation from the federal government of Nigeria has visited the Ntata family in the holy city of Medina, Saudi Arabia, to offer condolences and participate in the funeral rites for the late elder statesman and business icon Alhaji Aminu Ntata. Alhaji Ntata passed away on Saturday in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, at the age of 94. Following his wishes, he will be buried in Medina on Tuesday. The delegation, which departed Nigeria late Sunday and arrived in Medina early Monday, was led by the Minister of Defense and former Governor of Jigawa State, Alhaji Muhammadu Badaru Abubakar. He was accompanied by the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Prince Lateef Fagbemi SAN, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Alhaji Mohammed Idris, and the Minister of State for Housing and Urban Development, Yusuf Abdullahi Atta. Also among the delegation were prominent Islamic clerics, including Dr. Bashir Ali Umar, Sheikh Aminu Ibrahim Daurawa, and Khalifa Abdullahi Muhammad, the Imam of Ntata Mosque in Abuja. The delegation was received by Mustafa Junaid and other family members, including the deceased wives, children and grandchildren, who expressed appreciation for the government's condolence visit. The Minister of Defense, Muhammad Badr Abubakar, delivered President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's message of condolence. The demise of Baba Aminu deeply touches President Tinubu. He prays that Allah grants him Al-Jannah Firdaus and gives the entire family the fortitude to bear the irreparable loss. End of quotes. The Nigerian ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Ambassador Ibrahim Modibo, Consulate General Ambassador Muazzam Ibrahim Neaya, Defense Attaché Major General Adamu Hassan were also part of the delegation. Islamic clerics offered prayers for the late Alhaji Aminu Ntata. Nigerian parliamentarians joined their counterparts across the globe to commemorate this year's International Day of Parliamentarianism, themed Achieving Gender Equality, Action by Action. To augment the provisions of Sections 42 of the Nigerian Constitution, National Assembly correspondent Joshua Ogunjide reports that stakeholders are leveraging on the occasion, advocating for concerted efforts in ensuring equal gender representation in the forthcoming constitution review. Here is the report.
The International Day of Parliamentarism, recognized by the United Nations, is celebrated on June 30th, the date the Interparliamentary Union (IPU) was founded. Parliament, world over, use this day to reflect on the progress towards gender equality, assess their own practices and plan for the future. According to the IPU records, while some progress has been achieved by few countries in gender parity in their parliament, the overall pace of change remains slow and challenges persist.
I was able to rally my other colleagues, our fellow parliamentarians, to ensure the timely and the passage of a bill which eventually became a law, that is the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2021 in Osun State. This historic bill put an end to the age-long challenge of non-legislative framework or legal framework to prosecute violences against women.
These have been provided for in the Constitution, but there are state laws that have also made some issues of inequality, which they have made laws, but subnational, it is not enough. We believe that this should be captured categorically in the Constitution.
Presentation is a principal component of the IPU, hence engagement of the digital as well as social media space as a key campaign toolkit.
I've pushed it on social media for so many times, but there is no response.
Among the 7 or 8 principal officers, the ladies are occupying like more than 3, which is 3 or 4, which signifies that they are given fair share of representation. And also, the Nigerian Parliament has taken the use of social media platform to hear most of our activities.
The commemoration marks the 136th year of the Interparliamentary Union's existence, a thriving international organization made up of 181 national parliaments and open to all 46,000 parliamentarians in the world. In Abuja, Joshua Ogunjide, NTA News.
Now, discipline, focus and national interest should be the priorities of new members of the governing board of the Nigerian Ports Authority. Minister of Marine and Blue Economy Adegboyega Oyetola gave the charge while inaugurating the board in Abuja. Chukununso Mwabweze reports.
The symbolic administration of Oath of Allegiance set the stage for the formal inauguration of members of the governing board of the Nigerian Ports Authority (NTA) by the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy Adegboyega Oyetola. The minister called on them to harness their extensive experience in elevating NPA's performance and service delivery, highlighting their role to the development of a competitive and efficient port system that meets global best standards and contributes meaningfully to Nigeria's economic transformation.
To the members of the Nigerian Port Authority, I enjoin you to engage constructively with the board in a manner that reflects professionalism, mutual respect, and shared responsibility. Institutional harmony is vital, and this can only be achieved through cooperation, transparency, and unwavering dedication to national service.
The NPA, under your charge, must attain greater heights and contribute meaningfully to the sustainable growth of Nigeria's maritime sector and the economy at large.
Chairman of the board, Senator Adedayo Adeyeye, in his remarks, pledged the board's unwavering determination in preparing to great success programs and policies of the federal government in line with their mandate.
We want to give to the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President and the directives of the minister. But I expect all of us to bring our experiences to bear on the activities of the board. There must be a change for the better.
The 11-member board, which comprises former Deputy Governor of Ebonyi State, former National Assembly members, as well as other distinguished Nigerians, are expected moving forward to provide policy directive and supervision of activities of NPA management. Chukunonso Mwabweze, NTA News.
We head to the courts where the federal government has arraigned Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan before the Federal High Court, Abuja, on a 6-count charge bordering on alleged harmful imputations and cybercrime against the Senate President Godswill Akpabio and former Governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello. In a petition to the IGP, the President of the Senate complained about the alleged damage done to his reputation by suspended Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan on the accusation that the President of the Senate planned to eliminate her in Kogi State. Following her not guilty plea, the Director of the Public Prosecution of the Federation, Mohammed Abubakar, urged the court to fix dates for trial. But her counsel, Roland Otaru, SAN, moved a bail application on the grounds that the suspended senator is not a flight risk and will not interfere with investigation. After listening to both parties, Justice Musa Umar granted the suspended senator bail on self-recognizance and adjourned the case to 22nd of September for commencement of trial. The National Health Insurance Authority has sanctioned 49 urban healthcare facilities and 47 health maintenance organizations in 2024 in accordance with its operational guidelines. This is part of ongoing efforts to improving quality of service to enrolled Nigerian patients. In a statement by the Acting Director of Media and Public Relations, Emmanuel Onoponopo, the action followed investigations into complaints received from patients enrolled into the state and national health insurance schemes. Key issues recorded in the complaints against HCFS include unavailability of medicines, denial of services, out-of-pocket payments for covered services, and non-provision of payment narrations. Some issues for the HMOs are related to delays or denials of referral authorization codes, delays in settlements of agreed reconciled payments, and refusal to monitor quality assurance in facilities. Speaking on the development, NHIA DG Dr. Kelechi Ohiri described the NHIA's complaints management process as organic to the agency's efforts to enhance accountability, rebuild trust, and improve quality of health care. Now, that does it on the news at 7 on this time on NTA International. We thank you for being a part of it. I'm Blami Ali. and Tayo Ozoma has been the sign language interpreter. Do have a good evening.